I'm going to talk now about Israel's so-called peace partners in the search for the Arab-Israeli peace. It's not simply a question of peace partners per se. Now, if you can make an agreement with another entity, an opposing entity for peace, or for whatever kind of agreement you have that you want to make, and you can live with it, that's great. But when you have enemies who are sworn to your defeat and your destruction through their charters, through their religion, through their actions, it's not so easy to try to make peace. And the media and the UN and the United States government sometimes and the Europeans are constantly harping on Israel. You have to make peace with your enemies. No, you don't have to. If you can, great. But if your survival is at stake, you defeat your enemies. And that, unfortunately, the liberal media cannot comprehend, that Israel is in a position where its very existence is at stake. Let's look at some of these peaceful symbols of the so-called peace partners who Israel faces. Palestine Liberation Organization, known as the PLO. Who are they? Well, they were founded by the Arab League in 1964. That's significant. This is at a time when Israel did not control Gaza or Judea and Samaria. Gaza was controlled by Egypt. Judea, Samaria, or the West Bank was controlled by Jordan. At that time, a Palestinian state could have been formed by those entities in those areas. PLO was formed in 1964. It is an umbrella organization of many different Palestinian Arab so-called liberation movements. And one of its founding fathers is the famous Yasser Arafat, who passed away in 2004, current president of the Palestinian Authority and still the head of its largest party, Fatah, is Mahmoud Abbas, the current president of the Palestine Liberation Organization. But take a look over here. Take a look at this chart over here of the various emblems. The PLO. PLO's symbol over here encompasses the entire state of Israel. It does not contemplate a Jewish state or coexistence. Very significant. This patch, a patch of this particular emblem, used to be worn on the arm of Yasser Arafat on his uniform to constantly remind everybody this is who he stood, this is what he stood for, this is who he was. Fatah is the largest party in the PLO. Look at its symbol. It is a symbol of violence, violent clashes, and it too does not represent or show what appears to be any attempt at peaceful coexistence with a Jewish state, let alone any other organization or group or country, native country within that land. And look at Hamas. Hamas is the Islamic resistance movement. It is a religiously based movement. It encompasses a symbol of two swords with Al-Aqsa mosques, which is on the Temple Mount. It is an organization that has a charter which is genocidal. Not merely they want to destroy the state of Israel, they want to kill and murder all Jews. That is who we're talking about. These are the symbols of the very organizations and groups that Israel is supposed to make peace with. On the 48th anniversary of Fatah, they unveiled a new logo, which was consistent with their official PA maps used in their documents and government offices that do not acknowledge Israel's existence and mark Israel as Palestine. Look at this symbol over here. It is a peaceful looking symbol from their point of view. It's got the dove in it. Isn't that nice? But look at the kaffir-laden map of Israel, or so-called Palestine. Again, this shows exactly who these people are, what they represent, what they're striving for. They are not striving for a two-state solution. That is not their goal. The goal is to eradicate the Jewish state of Israel. And Israel's peace partners, as we consistently say, do not want peace. Listen to what they say. The media wants to ignore this and believe that they know better, that the Europeans know better, the UN knows better, The United States State Department knows better. Obama administration and Secretary Kerry know better. A two-state solution is the answer. Well, it's not the answer, but that is not what these people want. And while Israel has kept open its hand for peace and has given opportunities and even withdrawn from land in Gaza, and look what happened to Gaza. It is a failed state that they could have had a Singapore there. It is run by Hamas. It is an example of what happens when Israel has given up land. That area now is a terrorist launching state of thousands of missiles and rockets have been fired on Israel. That will happen in Judea and Samaria if Israel gives up that land for so-called peace. It's happened when Israel withdrew from southern Lebanon and Hezbollah took over. Thousands of rockets and tunnels are being built there as well. Look at what Fatah Abbas has said. Don't order us to recognize a Jewish state. We won't accept it. He continues to say that. Hezbollah, which is a Shia-based Muslim terrorist group, one of the most vicious in history, has killed hundreds of Americans and has launched missiles and wars against Israel from the north. Look what Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah, says. If we search the entire world for a person more cowardly, despicable, weak, and feeble in psyche, mind, ideology, and religion, we could not find anyone like the Jew. Notice I did not say the Israeli. I could have given you many dozens of examples further elucidating this very premise. Hamas. Hania, who's the head there, says, we affirm that armed resistance is our strategic option and the only way to liberate our land from the sea to the river. God willing, Hamas will lead the people to the uprising until we liberate Palestine, all of Palestine. It's as clear as day. You've got to listen to what they want to say. The former Egyptian president, Morsi, who was deposed after Mubarak was forced to leave office, and the United States actually backed Morsi, who was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. These bloodsuckers, he says, who attack the Palestinians, these warmongers, the descendants of apes and pigs, that's what Muslims say many times the Jews are. They have been fanning the flames of civil strife wherever they were throughout history. They are hostile by nature. And the former president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, the nations of the region will soon finish off the usurper Zionists in the Palestinian land. A new Middle East will definitely be formed. With the grace of God and help of the nations in the new Middle East, there will be no trace of the Americans and Zionists. The supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei, said Israel's a cancer. It will be cut. And the new president, who's been president for several years, Hassan Rouhani, who the media consistently refer to as a moderate. Holy Quds should be liberated from the yoke of Israel. Holy Quds is the Arabic term for Jerusalem. In fact, actually, that is the derivation of a Hebrew term, the HaKodesh, the holy city. Israel is an old wound on the body of the Islamic world. And this is a country who the United States now has an agreement with to restrict their nuclear capabilities and weapons. However, just in the news this week, this very week now, it has been reported that the Iranians have not only been violating this Iran nuclear agreement by developing ballistic weapons, ballistic missiles, which of course are going to be the engine and vehicle designed to contain and fire a nuclear weapon, but they put on and displayed on the news, on these missiles in Hebrew, it says on their missiles that Israel must be wiped out. It's clear as day. These are the enemies of Israel who Israel is supposed to make peace with. And Dry Bones put it through this way: the codes of incitement, the so-called old anti-Semitism, where Jews are described as evil and demonic and they kill babies. But the new anti-Semitism, you don't say that about Jews. You can't really say that out in the open. So you say the Jewish state is evil, demonic, and they kill babies. Anti-Semitism disguised as hate for the Jewish state is really in the anti-Semitism of the Jewish people. And Dr. Martin Luther King recognized that in a famous statement that he has made. Do the Palestinian Arabs really want a state with of their own, living side by side with Israel in so-called the area of Western Palestine, which we've discussed in other segments about the Ottoman Empire and the Palestine Mandate? History has shown the answer is clearly no. They have rejected a state offered to them 6 times historically since 1937, and when they rejected the Peel Commission partition. In 1947, the UN Partition Plan. In 1967, Israel offered to return lands captured in the Six-Day War, and were rewarded by the Arab League at the Khartoum Conference several months later with the famous 3 no's. No peace, no negotiation, no recognition. In 2000, the famous Camp David Accords with President Clinton and Arafat refused to accept a deal where would have given them 95% of the land in Judea, Samaria, or the West Bank, and a capital in eastern Jerusalem, and 100% in Gaza. They rejected that because it means living alongside the Jewish state of Israel. In 2008, they rejected President and Prime Minister Olmert's offer of 94% of Judea, Samaria, West Bank, and land swaps, and a shared capital in Jerusalem, 100% of Gaza, rejected. And very recently, 2014, Prime Minister Abbas walked away from negotiations for a 2-state solution because the Palestinian Arabs refused to recognize Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people in any borders. They have rejected. He's a rejectionist. Does the media report this? No, he's considered a moderate. As former retired professor Alan Dershowitz from Harvard Law School, who's an outspoken supporter of Israel, clarified things in a book. And I think this is a very important cartoon which gives you a great example. You have the so-called soldier of Palestine on the left. And look at him. He cowardly is hiding behind a baby carriage, facing off against, on the right, the IDF soldier who is defending the innocent baby. Now, the so-called soldier of Palestine, why is he hiding behind a baby carriage? Because he knows that the moral IDF will not shoot him if it means potential collateral damage against a baby. But yet, his goal is not only to have that baby be collateral damage, but he is shooting there so that he can take out innocent civilians. This is an example of a double war crime which Hamas, Gazans, and Palestinian Arabs engaged in against Israel in the Gaza wars of 2008, 2012, and 2014. While hiding behind their own civilians, they fired tens of thousands of rockets and missiles into Israel designed to kill civilians indiscriminately. And yet, these war crimes are hardly reported. It's Israel who's always shown to be, in the media, the ones who are the aggressors or who are disproportionately trying to defend themselves in this collateral damage, when the Hamas and the Gazans are specifically trying to kill innocent Israelis with their rocket attacks. Not going after militants, but going after the civilians.